Hi there! I shall explain how communication, both words and symbols, is misunderstood. First, here are reasons why it could be misunderstood. 1. Being too lazy to learn what someone's symbols and words actually mean, or not being taught properly. 2. Replacing one's intellect with irrational emotion. 3. Being unfairly judgmental, stemming from a bloated sense of self-worth or an unloving or uncaring attitude toward others. Quoting John 7:24. Judge not according to the appearance, that is your initial impression, but judge righteous judgment. That is, take time to know others whom you don't understand, and so evaluate them properly. Now for symbols. The most controversial and hated symbol is the swastika. Since that's so, should we abandon its use? My conclusion, no! That's because it has been an extremely important cultural, philosophical, political, religious, and social symbol that has united mega millions of like-minded people for at least the last 12,000 years. And this isn't secret, obscure knowledge. This is common knowledge found on the internet. By the way, it was my grandfather who taught me how to draw a swastika. Moreover, acquiescence creates a slippery slope. Conceding to or forfeiting one relatively minor point gives others license to have their way over you until everything you stand for is obliterated. See slippery slope or camel's nose on Wikipedia. For example, actress slash comedian Sarah Silverman launched a complaint over construction markers which she mistook for swastikas. A man had the audacity to object to swastikas that I displayed while he displayed a Confederate flag. Yet the ignorant also consider the Confederate flag a hate symbol which they falsely equate with slavery. A white man displaying a Confederate flag in his rear car window was driven off the road by two black men who then shot him dead because of that flag. In some circles, even the regular United States flag is considered a hate symbol. Sometimes even it doesn't stop. It's a slippery slope. You concede at one point, it get more extreme. For example, sometimes even the gay, lesbian, and transgender rainbow flag has been deemed quote-unquote not inclusive enough, and so sometimes a Star of David or black and brown stripe was added. Trying to ban all American Indian symbols in advertising and sports is another attempt to destroy tradition. Now for words. Many normal everyday English words now have sexual or obscene definitions. Via society's crudeness, normal definitions are often ignored. Example, cock. My introduction to the word cock was from the Cock Robin ice cream shop. When I was a kid, I went there with my parents and sometimes my grandparents. My favorite was the 1 in a million shake. Sometimes I had ice cream. But anyway, cock means a male bird. And that had the insignia of the male bird. He was smiling, he had wearing a top hat and whatever. My Bible uses the word cock, King James Version. Old King James uses the word cock in Matthew 26:34, Mark 14:30, and other passages. Modern Bible translations use rooster, but that's inaccurate since hens do most of the roosting. Modern translations inaccurately translate thousands of passages, so I'm not going to throw out my Bible. When I was a child, Dick meant Uncle Dick. In England, Dick means detective. When I was a child, like for instance, Dick Tracy, you think about that, the comic strip, Dick Tracy. When I was a child, a special type of tree was prominent in our yard. My grandmother explained that those were pussy willows. That was my first exposure to that word. The scientific term for them is Salix caprea. I had a friend who got frustrated with a woman friend because she kept making excuses for not going to church. So he then left a message on her answering machine saying, "When are you going to do it?" Meaning, when are you going back to church? Her husband heard it and thought that meant they were having an affair and he was pressuring her for sex. It's crazy. Some people react if you tell a coworker to service a customer, but to avoid its sexual double meaning, you would need 3 words, render service to replace one. So should we avoid all words with a sexual or vulgar second meaning so as not to offend people or reduce our conversation to a dirty joke? No! That's because eventually every word in the English language may end up with a sexual or vulgar second meaning. People just need to grow up, stop misjudging people, and educate themselves. Some words are mistaken for hate speech. For example, a man got temporarily banned off Facebook for typing the word faggots. He was referring to pork faggots, which is what they call sausage links in England. He was British. David Howard, aide to the mayor of Washington, D.C., used the word niggardly, meaning petty or reluctant in giving and spending, in reference to a budget. This upset a black colleague who took it as a racial slur and launched a complaint. Howard responded in an extremely cowardly and masochistic way by profusely apologizing, declaring that people who aren't black are ignorant, and resigning from his job. The window of the Chop Chop Chinaman restaurant in Chicago was vandalized by a woman. She took a tube of lipstick with the words, F this hate crime shit. It's 2015. Not only that, the owner was partly Chinese himself. Besides, calling the yellow race Asian is inaccurate. And yes, I used to be a member of a company of almost all 90% Chinese, and the guy, my Chinese buddy, called himself the yellow guy. Besides, calling the yellow race Asian is inaccurate. Asian is inaccurate as white Russians are also in Asia, along with the entire country of India. Calling them Chinamen or Orientals, or the yellow race, is more appropriate. To be precise, there are three major races: Caucasoid, Negroid, and Mongoloid. This classification is not obsolete, it is currently valid. This is known from the fact that hair samples of murder suspects are put into one of these three categories by forensic scientists. Highly educated, highly intelligent people who do the best, most accurate job in matters of life and death. If we continue to avoid words because idiots put a pornographic or bigoted label on them, and avoid cherished symbols, artwork, and products because some complain about their bad connotation, eventually the only images that will be allowed might be pictures of white men committing suicide, and the only words we'll be allowed to say to the dominant mulatto, half-Jewish, lesbian atheists with 50 IQs will be "Yes, Master." Besides, objectionable words already fill classical literature, such as an old poetry book my mother had, which contained poems referring to black people as niggers. So did Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer, and that. Many statutes are of objectionable figures. They weren't objectionable before, now the people are bitching, such as Confederate soldiers. In numerous films, filmmakers, musicians, religious leaders, and inventors are now labeled as intolerably bigoted. Traditional men's and women's clothing may eventually be labeled as unacceptably sexist, and on and on. The solution is not to burn down and tear down the entire country, which is the goal of social Marxists. So to hell with politically correct leftists. Fight back now!